Okay, sure.
What is the government policy that you're looking for?
It wasn't. It wasn't. It was a report that basically the report was saying that that the government will act along with like the following statement, which is that Jews have an exclusive and inalienable right to all the lands of Israel.
Well, the Jewish state does, yeah, which is going to
No,
be
no, no.
Israel.
It doesn't refer to the. No, it doesn't say the Jewish. It didn't say the Jewish state though. It said the Jewish people.
Okay, yeah, the people form a state. That's what it means. It's not like every Jew is going to own every square inch of the land,
Okay.
right? What you're thinking. What I believe you're referencing here is the nation-state law, which does not say that it literally talks about the right of the Jewish state to exist and the right of the Jewish people to self-determine on the land of
But
Israel.
that's okay. But no, see, that's completely different. For example, when you look at
So you think what the official policy of the Israeli government is that
that's what the
wait,
government
hold up. Wasn't
said.
finished asking a question. You think that the official policy of the Israeli government is that every Jew has a right to every inch of land in Israel? You think that's the official policy of the Israeli government?
That's what was said in the Times of
Obviously not.
Israel.
Obviously not. That would contradict the exact everything about Israel, right? Israel isn't a society. It's not a communist society, right? They don't own everything publicly. People own property
No, I'm
in
not.
Israel, right? So
Okay,
it's not.
that
What they're
is
not saying is not that every Jewish person has a right to all the land of Israel. They're not saying that
okay.
every square inch is owned by every Jewish person. What they're saying is that there's the Jewish state has a right to exist. That's what they're saying. It's a symbolic law. The Supreme Court already interpreted it and said that it's just laying out the right to self-determine of the Jewish state. That's all it's doing.
Those are two completely different things.
You're
Obviously,
talking about
no,
the
no.
nation-state law. I know exactly
Okay,
what you're talking about, and the Supreme Court already reviewed it.
okay, that's not what I was saying. This was an article that was published, I think, in 2023. I don't remember the exact
The nation-state
amount.
law is old. Yeah. So, and if you can't find it, then you're gonna have to make another argument.
No,
Otherwise, I'll
like,
bring somebody else up.
can I explain?
Yeah,
Like
go ahead.
what I was saying? It's not saying that it was publicly owned. That isn't what it was saying. It's obviously there's private property or whatever. But the point what I'm saying is that it was saying that the ethnic Jewish people have an exclusive right. That's not the same thing as saying that the state of Israel should exist.
Can't
That isn't
prove
the
it.
same
Prove
thing.
it. Prove it.
Okay, saying that a certain group, whether it be ethnic or
Prove that Israel did this.
that's what we're trying to do right now. I'm trying to find the article for it.
Didn't the ICC? Somebody said in the comments. Didn't the ICC mark Israel as an apartheid state? I don't know if the ICC actually ruled that Israel's an apartheid state, but didn't the UN say that Israel has a right to exist in the Levant and partition land? Do you accept the UN's resolution there? And why do you cherry pick international law and when to agree with it and when to not? I don't. I don't agree with international law at all. I don't think that a council of nations should make should make laws for other nations. I don't agree with that. So yeah, I'm just not going to agree with international law here.
Cherry picking, but it wasn't the ICC.
Not you. I'm not talking about you. I was talking about the comment.
But it wasn't the ICC. It was the ICJ, I believe, that ruled that Israel is guilty of apartheid.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But then there were also, even then, there were many former prime ministers of Israel who compared the West Bank the conditions in the West Bank to apartheid conditions. Who have said that Israel would
prove it. And even if there was, I would just disagree with those people. But you can just go ahead and try to prove it.
I mean, there were.
Who? Name one.
Okay, hold on. I have the quote. Hold on.
There were also U.S. presidents who have said bad things about America that weren't true. I don't know how that proves anything. Barack Obama believed that America was actively systemically racist against black people. Not true, but that's what he believed. I don't think that means anything. There are also lots of presidents who don't believe, or former Israeli prime ministers who don't believe this.
I mean, yeah, but then the whole purpose or the whole point in which the state of Israel was created was for it to create a Jewish majority in a land at the time where before the creation of the state of Israel, Jews were a minority in that land. They only comprise about a third of the
The goal
population,
was to
or maybe a
establish a
little
Jewish
less than
state.
that.
Yeah, the goal was to establish a Jewish state. I don't know why that would mean apartheid. Yeah,
Yes.
the country was also founded upon like principles of democracy and equality, right? As
Okay.
outlined in their Declaration of Independence, there was Arab members of the Knesset from the very moment that Israel was established.
I mean, if you
No,
okay,
no.
how does okay?
I think
So
it's
how does
his.
one?
Hold up.
Wait. So how does one? Okay, explain to me.
There's too
Like
much going on. Let me talk to this guy.
Oh,
What's up? What's up?
Wow. How old is he?
How old's who? Hello?
Oh, okay.
Hello?
Yeah, he has a lot of energy. Mine's 11. He's 11.
Hey,
He's
not
11.
hovo, not hovo.
He's,
Hello?
he's getting up there. Yeah, he's not. He doesn't run like he used to.
Okay. What the hell is this? Why is this guy like, he doesn't realize he's in the live? Okay. Alright, who's next? Request to join, guys. Here, maybe I'll restart the live. Here, I'll restart the live. Alright, guys. So, for those of you who don't know, what we're doing today is we are debating people, offering $100 to people on TikTok if they can prove that Israel is an apartheid state. So if somebody can prove that Israel is an apartheid state, I will give them $100. So I just started the live again, and we'll see if we can get some more people in here to argue this point. And while I do it, I will be playing Fortnite. And if I need to pull up any sources, I will. Okay, the live started. Make sure to like the live, guys, to get a push in the feed if people don't agree with us. We'll try to find some anti-Israel people who believe that Israel is an apartheid state. Request to join if you don't agree with me. Let's have a debate. So how it works, guys, we're live on TikTok right now as well as YouTube and Twitter. And the TikTok live allows us to get guests in here that will have a conversation with us. You guys will be able to hear their audio. You won't be able to see them. Okay. TikTok. Okay. Done. Alright, request to join, guys. Yeah, I'm gaming. Like the live, let's get a push in the feed. People don't agree with us. Send some roses to push the feed out. Make sure to double tap the screen. Debate Harry, please. Debate him on what? Trump? Getting like really low viewership on TikTok. It's super weird. We just had like 180 people in. But then we dropped off. Debate Hunter Avalon on what, Israel? I don't know what Hunter's opinions are on Israel. I've debated Hunter before though. I've debated Harry many times. So-called conservative does so much shilling for America or for Israel. So America first of you. Giving military aid to Israel absolutely is America first. We don't actually give Israel any money. It never leaves America. And if you idiots who sit around and follow Nick Fuentes and whine about giving money to Israel all the time would like just learn anything about foreign policy, you would understand this. All of the money that we give Israel is just like coupons. So we say, all right, Israel will give you this amount of money this year, and then we spend it all on U.S. companies, right? So we buy weapons from U.S. companies, and then we send it to Israel. It takes your tax dollars and re-injects it back into the economy rather than being spent on welfare and things like housing for illegal immigrants and other BS that the U.S. spends the U.S. government spends their money on. On top of that, because Israel gets stuck with our weapons platforms and we give so many of our weapons platforms to them, do you know what happens? Israel needs the bullets for those weapons platforms. They need the missiles, right? They need to regenerate their supply of munitions after they use them, and which results in year over year them spending billions and billions and billions of more dollars of their own money on U.S. defense contractors. We profit immensely from our relationship with Israel. It is absolutely America first. Hello. They don't use their money for their own defense industry. We don't give them any money. We spend it all on U.S. defense contractors. What's up?
Hey, what's up? So, based on the point you were just making, are you also in favor of selling weapons to Saudi, Egypt, etc.?
It depends on the context. If Egypt's like actively engaged in war against one of our allies, then no. But if
Well,
like in
Egypt's
terms of yeah, say it was in terms of giving weapons to like our allies or people that we don't see as a threat to like that they're not going to use their weapons on America, then yeah, if we're going to profit from the relationship, for sure, I don't see an issue with that. But that's not the prompt.
Okay, so
the prompt is prove Israel's an apartheid for $100.
Okay. No, just based on the sticking to the current point. So you are in favor of giving weapons to Saudi as long as they buy.
No, didn't say that. I said that if America doesn't view them as a threat, right? So, like, if we have any inclination that this country could become hostile to America in the future, we're obviously not going to give them weapons, okay? Or if we don't agree with like their, like some of the things that they're doing, we're obviously not going to give them weapons, right? But I'm arguing that because Israel's our ally and they're currently fighting our enemies, and they are doing what we're asking of them, that there's no reason why we shouldn't give them defense, give them money when we immensely profit from giving them money. So anyway, back to the prompt. The prompt is, I'll give you $100 if you can prove Israel's an apartheid. Now make an argument.
Okay. Do you believe that the responsibility and the welfare of the people in the West Bank and Gaza belongs to Israel?
No. Not in areas A and B, at least.
Okay. But it does in C? Just the settlements?
C, yeah.
So it only applies to the Jewish people?
No. There are plenty of Muslim Arabs living in Israel proper. It only applies to people that are under the governance of the Israeli government, right? Areas A and B of the West Bank are under the governance of the Palestinian Authority. The Gaza Strip is under the governance of Hamas. They don't hold Israeli citizenship there. So they're not subjects of Israel, and they're not, therefore, like, Israel's not responsible for maintaining their well-being. 21% of Israel's population are Arabs. There's over 1 million Arabs living in Israel, many of them Muslims. Israel is responsible for those people's well-being, and they treat them very well. They're full rights-bearing citizens. They can do anything a Jewish person can.
Okay, can a Muslim marry a Jewish woman in the state of Israel?
That's not up to the Israeli government. That's up to the religious institutions. Israel doesn't sanction marriages. The government doesn't issue marriage licenses. It's always up to the religious institutions. There's no law that says you can't. It's up to the institutions.
Is it legal for a Jewish Israeli woman to marry a Muslim or a Christian man, according to Israeli law, not Jewish law?
Israel doesn't have any laws related to marriage in the country. They don't deal with marriage. Yes, it's a purely a civil matter. It has nothing to do with Israeli law. The religious institutions govern marriage in Israel. So would the synagogues allow a Jewish person to marry a Muslim? Probably not, unless they converted. And would the mosques allow a Muslim man to marry a Jewish woman? Probably not, unless they converted. If even then.
It's actually allowed in Islam for a Muslim man to marry a Jewish woman.
I'm not familiar with like Islamic law, but
okay,
it doesn't matter anyway. Like Israel doesn't make laws regarding marriage.
Are you sure about that?
I'm positive. Yes, they never have.
Okay, so you're telling me it is legal and it's allowed for a Jewish woman to marry a Christian man?
Israel doesn't issue marriage licenses. They don't have any laws on the books about marriage. They don't deal with it as an institution of government. They don't deal with marriage in the same way that the West does.
Okay, I'm gonna, because I definitely I don't have it in front of me, but I'm gonna try to pull it up. But I definitely remember reading about Jews not being allowed to marry Christians or Muslims.
Again, the Israeli government does not issue marriage licenses. They don't view religion or marriage as like something to be dealt with in government. They view it as a religious thing. They'll like recognize international marriages, but that's about it. Like they're not gonna. They don't like. Huh?
So are you saying that they don't issue like licenses for marriage?
Yes, they don't issue. As far as I know, they do not issue licenses for marriage. They don't deal with marriages at all as an institution. It's left up to the religious leaders. It seems like you don't really like. It seems like you're kind of unaware of the situation that you brought up. So anyway, what's your next argument?
Okay. I'm reading right now. It says,
Did he drop? Did he leave? He just left. He just left. Oh, he's requested again. Hello.
Yep, sorry, I got a call. Let's see. So I'm reading, it's on Wikipedia, but I'm sure it's probably true. It says, in Israel, marriage can be performed only under the auspice, can be performed only under the religious community to which couples belong, and interfaith marriage
Exactly.
performed within the country are not legally recognized. So
No marriages.
Israel does
they don't like. The state of Israel doesn't legally recognize marriages at all. That's just like a twist of it.
No, no. It says it.
They don't. The
recognizes-
legal recognition of marriage is issuing a marriage license. Israel does not issue marriage licenses. That's the legal recognition of a marriage in the eyes of a state. But the Israeli government does not issue marriage licenses. They don't recognize any marriage. Religious institutions recognize marriages, not the government.
Okay,
That's been
I'm
the
looking
case
at-
since day one in Israel. They've never issued marriage licenses or dealt with marriage as an institution.
Okay, I'm on the U.S. government website. Okay, U.S. Embassy in Israel. So I'm pretty sure they know probably more than you. USTAXcourt.gov. And this is U.S. Embassy in Israel. And then let's go to the mixed marriages section. It says, with very few exceptions, Israeli civil law does not permit marriage between Jews and non-Jews within the state of Israel. The Israeli government will recognize marriages performed between Israeli Jewish citizens and non-Jews that are performed outside of Israel. Israeli law does not permit marriage in Israel between converts. So yeah, there's clearly a law about it. I don't think you're aware of it, probably.
So what do you think? How do you think that this discriminates against people? Even if this were the case,
It's not about discrimination. It's about viewing the Jewish. Okay, go ahead.
That's not what apartheid is. First of all, apartheid is a system of discrimination likened to the South African apartheid. So that's not going to prove that Israel's an apartheid. First of all, so it seems like the recognition of marriage would be purely symbolic, right? So what is your point here? What do you get? Even if Israel doesn't recognize the marriage, even if they say this is like the equivalent of like me saying that I don't recognize Palestine as a state, right? Doesn't matter. The U.S. saying that they don't recognize Palestine as a state. If Palestine was a real state, which it's not, then it wouldn't matter if America recognized the state or not, because the state still exists independent of their opinion, right? So in the same way that like nothing happens, right? Like the marriage exists regardless, and there are no changes in your like life if the Israeli government recognizes your status or not, because they don't deal with marriage, they don't issue marriage licenses. How would this discriminate against people? It seems like a purely symbolic recognition or unrecognition, like an opinion, not actual legislation.
Okay, no, I'm not saying I have like a moral objection to it, because if it's their religion, then I don't care. But I'm saying, you can't say that it's not discriminating against.
How does it discriminate
Jewish
against
people.
them? What adverse effects does it have on non-Jewish people? They don't deal with marriage at all. Israel doesn't make laws about marriage. They don't issue marriage licenses. So the Israeli government saying, well, we don't recognize convert marriage. Okay, so what? It does nothing. It has no effects on anybody. What's the point? Like,
It says
how is
Israeli
that
civil-
discrimination?
It says the law does not permit it.
There's no
So there could be
laws
legal
about
action.
Israel doesn't issue marriage licenses. They
Bro,
don't
I'm on
marry
the US
people. The
Embassy
government
website.
doesn't marry people. You have a
not saying it does.
you have a misconstrued idea about how marriage works in Israel because you're like referencing it to how it works here. They
No,
don't they don't issue marriage licenses. Israel does
This is
not
not
deal with laws related to marriage. Okay? So
Okay.
how does it affect people at all if the Israeli government says as a position we don't recognize interfaith marriages? Okay. So
Hear
what?
me out.
It doesn't
Answer this question.
It doesn't mean you can't get
Okay.
married. The marriages are still
Okay.
up to the religious institutions.
Okay, so I'm reading the government website, right? U.S. Embassy website. It says Israeli civil law does not permit marriage between Jews and non-Jews. Okay, so let's take this hypothetical situation where a Muslim man and a Jewish woman go to a place in Israel, whether it's a mosque or a synagogue, and they try to get married. Does the Israeli government have the right to arrest a Muslim man?
No, because it's civil law, not criminal law, professor.
Okay, so that's where you're wrong.
You just said it was civil law. Do you know what civil law is? Civil is civil disagreement. So, like, if you do something that I feel has shorted me, I can take you to civil court and sue you, right? But if I sue you, nobody's allowed to arrest you because I sued you. It would result in you having to give me money if you were found liable. That's what civil law is. It's not criminal law. They're different. Do you understand the difference between civil and criminal law? You don't go to jail for civil violations.
Yep. No, you can actually in some circumstances.
No, you can't. Name me one circumstance where you go to jail for a violation of civil law. If I sue you, in what instance do you go to jail?
If you sue me for fraud, certain frauds can go to jail.
No, you don't go to jail. No. If I sue you for fraud, you don't go to jail. Trump just got 34 felony counts of fraud, and he is. I guess. Sorry, no, that was a criminal case. I'm an idiot. That was a criminal case. Like, look at Trump's like sexual assault case, right? Trump's sexual assault case. He's never going to jail for that civil violation. I don't know why I said the fraud thing. He's never going to jail for violation of civil law, being held liable for sexual abuse that he may have or may have not committed, right?
Hey,
It's a civil violation. Somebody's just saying, you did this thing to me and I want retribution. The police aren't enforcing it. You're not going to jail. So that's not what civil law is. It's not criminal law. They're different things.
Okay, but everything I'm reading online says like the judge in criminal and civil courts have different power. Criminal court judges can punish you.
No. Okay. Well, anyway, nice try. So, all right, next person. Hello.
So, you need, like, the proof that was good enough for the international court's not good enough for you?
No. What about, so if you love international law so much.
How about shut the fuck up?
How about this is my live and you're going to either make an argument.
$100 and shove it up your ass, bitch.
Okay, you're such
Nazi bitch.
You're such a loser. Okay, we'll bring this guy up. The intolerant leftist. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm quite well, thanks.
Okay, cool. So, $100 if you can prove that Israel's an apartheid.
Oh, I don't care. I don't need your money, and I find you just disgusting.
Okay, so are you going to make an argument or no?
No, because why?
Okay, because you're too stupid too. Perfect.
No, because you're
See you
too
later.
stupid.
Because you're too stupid. Okay, great. These people have, like, I don't know, their IQs are the same integer as the number on my refrigerator's thermostat. Hello.
Yeah, hi. There's a 280-page document online, if you care to look, that talks about the exact conditions that Israel needs in order to be.
Okay, I'm not asking about that. I'm asking for you to make an argument, not direct me towards an argument. So if you're going to make an argument, then please do so. If not, then you can leave.
I mean, I don't know.
Make an argument. Why do you think, let's think for yourself here for a second. If you've done any research on this at all, if you've read the document you just referenced, you should know a couple reasons why you believe that Israel's an apartheid. So why is it?
There's too many. Listen.
Did you read the document that you just referenced or no?
I've read many pages of it.
Okay, great. So then you should have an argument or two. So what are they?
So it's not about having an argument.
It absolutely is. Make the case.
It's not, because let me
Make
tell
the
you
case
something.
that Israel's an apartheid.
When there was a Holocaust happening, people were denying that shit until it became so apparent that they couldn't deny it. Now, people like you would have denied the Holocaust, even with all the outstanding evidence that is happening. So you don't need to ask nobody for evidence.
Okay, so are you going to make an argument that there's an apartheid or not?
Okay,
goodbye.
Gaza's going through a genocide.
Holy shit. No good arguments, man. It's just whining and complaining. Give me an argument that Israel's committing an apartheid. Hello.
Well, I don't want to give you an argument. I just want to tell you I think you're gross, and I hope you get AIDS.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I swear, dude, they have nothing between their ears. This person's just loading in. It's not working. Here, what we can do is bring in this guy, the intolerant leftist. Again, what's up, man? Do you have an argument this time or no?
So you are an idiot. Everybody hates you. You have no.
Great. So no argument. Like I'm just. Oh my God, they're so stupid. Hello. Do you have an argument?
No, and I'm not going to tell you I want to get AIDS either. I don't really care. No, I can see both sides of the argument. I just want to let you know this is great programming. I've been watching this for 10 minutes. Like, this is terrific. Keep up. I'm not endorsing any killing of anybody or any of that. Just this is keep up the good work.
Well, what do you like about it?
The fact, okay, one, they haven't mustered a single point, and yet they're all furious. And you're kind of stonewalling them, but you are genuinely curious to receive a point that you can debate with, and it's just in stalemate of just a really hilarious situation here. It's sublime. It's sublime.
I appreciate it, man. Well, I appreciate that. Have a good one, man. Okay, so all right, we got some more people requesting to join. Let's see who we got down here. Oh man.
Hello.
Hello. Do you have an argument?
Yeah, I think so. So I don't actually know if the answer is yes or no, but let's think first. Let's ask the question: What is apartheid? Like, do you think you have a definition of that?
Yeah. So I think that there are some basic definitions of apartheid, but I think that you're going to need a more in-depth explanation of what apartheid actually is, based on the historical context of apartheid. So apartheid was created by the South African government to oppress black people in South Africa. So I think it's going to be a system of racial segregation.
That's what I'm getting on Google too. Yeah,
it's going to be a system of racial discrimination and like racial sort of domination that shares characteristics of apartheid South Africa. So in apartheid South Africa, the white government and they named it, like they called it apartheid too. That's why it's so important that when we're talking about this, we make sure that it shows resemblance to South Africa. So what they did was they stripped all of the black people in South Africa of their citizenship and moved them to Bantustans that made up 20% of the country while they seized 80%. So I think that you're going to have to show some pretty characteristic similarities. They weren't able to do business outside of those Bantustans. They weren't allowed to buy property. They weren't allowed to do anything outside of them, right? Like they had no autonomy at all. And it was purely based on their race, and I don't think that Israel has. I don't think that Israel even discriminates against people based on their race, let alone instituting a system of racial domination.
Well, here's what I'll say. I mean, obviously, it's not totally analogous, right? But I think there are some parallels, though. So that's why I think it's understandable that some people are calling it apartheid. Can you see some? You can't see any parallels?
I think that you could find parallels in literally anything. I think you could find parallels in Adolf Hitler's Germany to America,
sure.
Like, you know what I mean? You could find parallels in anything.
The concept of apartheid a little more than you're saying, as if any parallel can be drawn. So first, like you're saying that apartheid needs to have two basic grounds, and that's what I'm reading on Google too. It seems like there's two basic fundamentals to apartheid. There has to be discrimination in a some kind of state, right? And then the discrimination has to be on the basis of race. Those are the two things.
It's gonna be like basically an attempt to institute racial domination, like total racial domination. That's what South Africa did.
So do you think that there is some form of discrimination in Israel or any of the occupied territories, or some form of oppression that exists that can constitute essentially discrimination?
It depends on what you mean. Yeah, I mean, certainly Israel discriminates against Palestinian nationals, people who are not citizens of Israel, just as they should.
Sure.
Wait, hold up. I just want to explain this really well, just as they should, right? In the same way that the U.S. government discriminates against Mexican citizens or Canadian citizens, right? They don't treat them the same way. They're not, wait, I just want to explain this really well.
Okay, I'll let you finish. Go ahead,
I just want to make sure that everybody understands what I'm saying. In the same way that the U.S. government discriminates against Mexican citizens or Canadian citizens because they are not citizens of the United States. They don't enjoy the same rights as citizens of the United States because they aren't citizens, right? So people who live in areas A and B of the West Bank, or are people who live in Gaza and are Palestinian citizens, do not enjoy the rights as.
Can I respond to that point, though?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So the contention here is that you're trying to draw an analogy between citizens of different states, like the United States and Mexico, and you're saying that the citizens of Palestinian territories are essentially the same, that they're the citizens of their own state.
Yes,
so Israel doesn't have the power to discriminate because they're the citizens of a different state.
It's not even necessarily they're actively discriminating against. It's just that there is a certain set of rights that Israeli citizens have, and people who have chosen to be citizens of the Palestinian Authority have relinquished those rights by getting rid of their Israeli citizenship and adopting Palestinian citizenship.
Wait. Before we get to the Israeli citizenship part, I just want to say that I want to debate the point that I don't think it is abundantly clear that Palestinians are simply citizens of their own sovereign state. They're obviously not, right? They're not in a sovereign state. They're occupied.
They're territories.
They're de facto occupied by Israel.
No, they're
right?
not. No, they're not. Areas A and B are not occupied by Israel.
Okay, but you said how about Area C?
You gotta let me respond. You gotta let me respond. Area C. Area C is Israeli territory, right? Many of the people, the Arabs who live in Area C, oftentimes are either Israeli citizens or are routinely offered Israeli citizenship for free, but they reject it. But they reject it because the Palestinian Authority tells them, if you take Israeli citizenship, we will revoke your Palestinian citizenship. You cannot be a dual citizen of Israel and Palestine at the same time. That's what their own government tells them. So if that's the case, that's not Israel's fault. They're doing everything they can.
Yes,
but Israel does still go as far as to give them permanent residency so that they can still, work in Israeli territories and stuff like that.
Okay, I understand. But here's the thing. So would you say that the entirety of the rest of West Bank and Gaza are their own sovereign state?
Not totally. Not so. Do you know how it works?
I would argue that they're not a sovereign state at all.
Well, no, they're not a sovereign state completely, but they do have autonomy, right? So areas A. Wait, hold up. Okay. If you ask me a question, you gotta let me respond without jumping in, man.
Okay, all right. So go ahead.
So how it works is areas A are under full control of the Palestinian Authority, both civilly and in terms of security. Okay. Area B, the Palestinian Authority has the dictate of governance, so they govern areas B. However, they share security control with the Israeli government, and that's obviously just because that area B is like a buffer between Israeli territories and Palestinian territories. So both groups manage security there to ensure that neither get unduly attacked.
I already have some understanding of this system, but I think then you would also agree then that Palestinian territories are not totally sovereign, and there is a lot of power dynamic issues.
I would argue
with Israel.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a power dynamic issue if you have a bigger power on your border, right? However, I would argue that I would argue that like areas A in Gaza are like de facto sovereign, right? Like Israel's not like fucking with their shit, right? And areas B, Israel.
You're saying Gaza is de facto what?
Gaza has been de facto independent for the past since 2005.
Okay. Here's the problem I have with that though, because I think it's pretty clear that Israel inflicts a lot of oppression on Gaza for the past several decades,
Disagree.
Okay, so how about the blockade? Is that not a form of oppression?
Yeah. Do you know why the blockade is there?
Okay. Yes, I know where the blockade is.
No,
there
the blockade's not a form of oppression.
I know.
Wait, hold up. No. You
explain.
explain. Yeah, I argue no. I'm going to explain exactly why, and please don't interrupt me while I do so. So, the United States also has a wall on our border, right? That's not oppression to Mexico. That's a wall on our border. And to make things worse, Mexico isn't actively attacking America all the time.
Okay.
Whereas Israel put that blockade up in a direct response to the Second Intifada and the election of Hamas as the sole governing authority of the Gaza Strip. Not only did Hamas secure the majority of seats in the Palestinian Legislative Council, but they also murdered. Wait, I'm not finished, dude. You gotta let me finish. But they also murdered every member of Fatah, their rival political faction in the Gaza Strip. They murdered every single one of them that was in the Strip and seized power totally. So, I think that the wall is totally justified when Hamas started unjustly bombing Israel. I'm not finished, so please stop trying to squeeze in here until I'm finished.
I just don't want to miss a point because you're rolling the points over. You know.
Cool. I'm totally not finished talking. So just let me finish.
Continue.
Okay. So I think that it's totally justified to put up a blockade when throughout the from 2000 to 2005, Hamas, the now governing authority of this Gaza Strip, literally just in the years prior to the blockade going up, had and it went up in 2007 after the election in 2006, had bombed restaurants, cafes, bars, shopping malls, markets, gas stations, like buses were the primary target, anywhere where you'd find civilians and never a military base. So like for sure I think that this blockade is justified against literally their enemy that continues to shoot missiles at them. Of course I think it's justified.
Okay.
If Afghanistan was on our border after 9/11, I would for sure justify a blockade on the border.
Okay. So here's my response to that. The contention here is then, not what necessarily whether there's oppression, but it seems that you're trying to argue that it's justified. I'm just trying to say that
no, it's not oppression.
There's some form of oppression, not that it's not justified. We haven't got there yet. I'm just trying to say that Israel inflicts oppression on Gaza because they're literally enclosed in a wall.
Do you know that like
control of food? And fuel and
there's
resources.
Control of food. Do you know why? Do you know why there's control of what goes in and out of Gaza?
I know why.
Yeah, exactly. Israel still lets the food in. I'm not finished. You asked me a question. Let me answer the fucking questions that you asked me. So you
yes or no? That's what I'm saying. You don't need to talk for like
no.
many
All right, I'm
paragraphs.
going to mute you if you don't let me respond. You asked me, do I think it's wrong that Israel is like inspecting all of the food that goes in? Israel doesn't block all of the food that goes in, okay? They don't block humanitarian aid from going into Gaza. What they do is they check the trucks before they go in to make sure that they're not smuggling in missiles, because that's what they do. They take a lot of the stuff that Israel gives them and they sell it on the black market back to Palestinians that can't afford it, and then they buy weapons with the revenues. Okay, so Israel has been providing Gaza with food and water out of their pocket for years. Okay, Fatah, after the civil war between Hamas and Fatah, decided in the West Bank that they were no longer going to provide food and water and stuff like that to Gaza. Because they just had a revolution and murdered all the members of their political party that was there. Okay, so what did Israel do? They stepped in and started providing it out of their own pocket, right? Like, so the idea that like Israel just wants to oppress them is bullshit. They have a blockade in place because the people that lived there were actively attempting to kill them.
Okay, so you're saying that there is no oppression, that the situation there doesn't constitute oppression.
Yes.
In any form.
Putting a blockade in place against people whose charter literally says the day of judgment will not come about until the Muslims fight the Jews, killing the Jews. When the Jews hide behind stones and trees, the stones and trees will say, "Oh, Muslims, oh, Dula, there's a Jew behind me." They never nullified the old charter, and the new charter still calls for the annihilation of an Israeli state. It doesn't call for the killing of...
I'm actually... I looked through the charter before.
I'm not finished. You gotta stop interrupting me. It does not call for the killing of Jews. It does not call for the killing of Jews directly, but it does call for the annihilation of the Israeli state. They say that they will not waver and will not compromise until a Palestinian state is established from the river to the sea, which would mean the annihilation of an Israeli state.
Okay. So... I still would make the argument that if you put a wall around people, I understand it's justified. But if you were going to put a wall around people, control what goes in or out, and you inspect the food, you inspect all imports, and is this not a serious sovereignty issue? Is this not a serious form of oppression when
they have another border? They have another border.
Yeah, and doesn't Israel have de facto control that border too?
They don't have de facto control of the Egyptian border. The Egyptians control the Sinai border.
So,
right?
from my understanding,
why doesn't Egypt do any better than Israel?
So
Because Egypt doesn't fucking like them either.
From my understanding, I would disagree with that. From my understanding, the border situation on the south side with Egypt, Israel essentially has de facto control over the imports there too.
In what way?
I mean, if that wasn't the case, then don't you think that, let's say, many more imports and exports would be flourishing through that border?
No, because everyone's afraid of terrorist organizations in the Middle East after Black September. Of course, they're not. Egypt's not just going to en masse ship in a bunch of stuff negligently. Obviously not. Egypt does ship in. There is stuff that crosses through Rafah. Right now, there's roughly 70 food trucks per day that come in through Rafah, but there's like 200 that go in through Israel. Israel provides them with 3,000 calories per day per person. Okay, they ship in more food now than they ever have.
And I want to discuss that point too before we get there. Because I just want to say that from my information, I've heard that. I thought that all of the calories essentially that were provided for Gazans for the past couple decades were from the United Nations. I thought they were all humanitarian aid.
It doesn't matter if they come from the United Nations or not. The fact is that you're claiming Israel doesn't allow the aid in, but they do.
No, I'm not saying
much of it comes from Israel. Like Israel provides a ton of food and water for Gaza. They import all the majority of it. The rest comes from Rafah. They import everything that goes through Kareem Shalom, and they provide a lot of it themselves. But yeah, a lot of it comes from the UN as well.
Okay. Still, if you put a wall around individuals, I think that by definition, I think it's a very strong case. I think it's incredible.
Do you think that like if you put a wall around a prisoner who just murdered like a bunch of people, do you think that's oppression?
Yeah. So you're oppressing the prisoners. I'm not saying it's not justified, but it's a form of oppression.
I would just disagree that it's oppression. I think that when you actively attempt to annihilate your neighbor, I think that you have forfeited. I don't see anything. Also, like the border, the wall is like on Israeli territory. I don't see any issue with with a sovereign country establishing borders.
Let's make an analogous argument. Let's say that a certain country is committing genocide, whether it's justified or not. I'm not saying this about Israel. I'm saying just a totally arbitrary example. If there is a genocide, let's say that by definition they're killing mass numbers of the group for any particular reason with genocidal sentiment, whatever the definition is. Just because it's justified doesn't mean it's not genocide, right? It's still genocide.
Genocide is never justified. Genocide is never justified.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that
your argument falls flat on its face.
This is oppression.
It's not oppression. Listen. We're going to sit here and argue for the next 20 minutes over whether it's oppression. We can move on to the next. This is up to the audience. I think I've made my case that it's not oppression. You guys can decide.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, let me think. What point do you want to move on to next?
It's up to you, man. You're the one steering the conversation.
Okay. So we can move on, I guess, to discrimination because we get stuck on a tangent about oppression. Sure. So would you argue that there's no discrimination?
No meaningful discrimination.
Okay. But the discrimination only matters if Israel has some form of control, some form of occupation over these territories, and you would argue that there's no control of these territories.
Israel doesn't control areas A or areas B, but I don't care. Wait, hold up. You asked me a question. Just let me answer the question.
Okay.
So my position, right, is that Israel is not an apartheid. They are not discriminating against people based on their race. They're not instituting a system of racial domination against Arabs. Okay, Arabs are the second most populous group in all of Israel. They make up 21% of the citizenry. They enjoy full rights in Israel. They can do anything that a Jew can do in Israel. There are roughly a dozen members of the Israeli Knesset. There's been members of the Israeli Knesset serving in the Knesset since the day of Israel's inception. Right, since as long as the Knesset existed, Arab members of the Knesset have existed. There is a Arab Israeli Supreme Court Justice, Khalid Kabab, sitting right now. There was a Arab Israeli Supreme Court Justice who sentenced a Jewish Israeli president to prison. That was George Kara sentencing Moshe Katsav to prison for a sexual assault. This would never happen in apartheid South Africa. Never would the apartheid South African government ever let a black guy sit on the court and sentence a white president to prison. Literally ever. It would never happen in apartheid South Africa. They stripped every black person of their citizenship. They couldn't vote, let alone serve in office, and exert political power over white people. So that's the case. Arabs can buy property, and there is a distinction between Arab Israelis and Palestinians. Palestinian is not a nationality, it's not an ethnicity, it is a nationality. And Arabs,
you're saying it's not a race. It's a nationality.
Yeah, it's a nationality, exactly. That's what I mean. Palestinian is a nationality, not a race or an ethnicity, okay? So Arab Israelis are genetically identical. They're going to be the same group as Palestinians. So the same group. Arab Palestinians and Arab Israelis, they're the same group, okay? So if Israel was instituting a power of racial superiority over Arabs, there wouldn't be Arabs in the Knesset, there wouldn't be Arabs buying property, there wouldn't be Arabs voting in elections, there wouldn't be Arabs on the Supreme Court, there wouldn't be Arabs sending Jewish people to prison. It just wouldn't happen.
Okay. So I just looked this up real quick, so I'm not incredibly versed as you are, I think. So let's look this up. And this is the AI overview on Google. It said, I asked, is there discrimination in Palestine, right? The first key point is that, yes, Palestinians living under Israeli occupation in the West Bank and Gaza Strip face systemic discrimination in various aspects of their lives, including
Israel
movement,
doesn't govern
access
them.
to resources,
Israel doesn't
and political
govern them.
representation.
Israel does not govern Palestinians. When they're
But
in
it governs
Israel,
some of them, right?
Hold up. No, they don't. They govern some people who claim Palestinian. Hold up. It's actually disconnecting my phone. They govern some people who claim to be Palestinian and refuse Israeli citizenship, but they treat those people impartially, right? They give them permanent residency so they can work in Israel and they can have rights of permanent residence because they reject Israeli citizenship. They routinely offer them citizenship, but the PA says that if you take the citizenship, we will take your Palestinian citizenship away from you. Okay? The Palestinians who live under Palestinian control, when they come to Israel, they're only discriminated insofar as that they are not citizens of Israel and therefore they don't enjoy the rights of citizens. They can't vote in elections. They can't buy land because they're not citizens.
Yes, you've made that point many times that the non-citizens of Israel, so the citizens that are Palestinian citizens,
they're not non-citizens.
Are not discriminated against because they're not occupied. I'm making the argument that they are discriminated against because Israel inflicts significant power and oppression over them and occupies them.
No, they don't.
Why
they don't occupy them. They're not in areas A. They're not in areas A. They're in areas B only because it's a buffer zone between. I'm not finished. I'm not finished my argument, dude. Stop interrupting me.
Okay.
Like it's been respectful, but just you got to not interrupt me. Okay. So Israel's not occupying them. They're in Area C because that is their legitimate territory, and they're in Areas B because that's an agreed-to buffer zone between Areas C and B, or C and A. Sorry, both Israel's military and the Palestinian security control Areas B. They have security control, whereas the Palestinian Authority in Areas B has civil control, which means that they create the laws and govern it essentially in Areas B. Right? So, like Israel's not occupying. Is not occupying them in areas A and B. They don't make laws for them in areas A. The Palestinian Authority makes laws for them in areas A.
Okay.
They don't make laws for them in areas B. The Palestinian Authority makes laws for them in areas B. They're not systemically discriminating.
Then why are there troops on the ground?
They're not in areas A. There isn't.
But in areas C and B there are?
Area C is Israeli territory. Of course, there are
so it's Israeli territory, but there are Palestinians living there, and those Palestinians are discriminated against or not?
They're discriminated against insofar as they're not Israeli citizens, so they don't get the rights of citizens, but they are routinely offered Israeli citizenship. The Israeli government says, hey, we would like you to be a citizen of Israel. Come be a citizen of Israel. And they say, fuck off. The Palestinian Authority told me that if I become a citizen of Israel, I'm not allowed to be a Palestinian citizen anymore. So I'm not taking Israeli citizenship. Okay? So that's the best they can do. They can't do anything more than offer them citizenship.
Sure.
So,
and that's why there's all those checkpoints and tons of Palestinians that are
because there's terrorists in the West Bank
and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, they have checkpoints on their borders with Palestinian territories because there are terrorists in Palestinian territories.
Yeah.
The PLO itself is a terrorist organization, which is the PA. The PA is run by Fatah, which is part of PLO, and was founded by Yasser Arafat as a terrorist organization that tried to not only destroy Israel, but they also tried to destroy Jordan, and they did destroy Yemen, and so like of course they have checkpoints. These people are dangerous.
Sure. It seems that the underlying disagreement here is whether Palestinians are in some form of occupation or not. I think that it is abundantly clear.
Do you agree that Israel doesn't discriminate against?
We can move across this point now.
Let's see how much we
agree
on.
We can move past this point.
I just want to see what we agree on real quick. do you agree that Israel doesn't discriminate against its Arab citizens?
Actually, so when I looked it up, and I've seen this being stated before. Let's see here. Let me pull up the AI thing. It says here on the AI, on the Google AI thing. It
Why are you
says,
using AI, dude? Just like
yeah, I mean, I'm sure we can pull it up on the Wikipedia. Maybe it'll probably say the same thing. I've seen this said before multiple times.
And it gives me
That
like false sources.
even the Arab citizens have some discrimination. I think it's unsurprising.
Yeah,
it's
based on
probably
what?
similar to what you see like here in the United States.
There's no discrimination against black people in the United States. Anyway, what kind of discrimination is it? What do they do?
I mean, I don't know, just basic like systemic discrimination.
Yeah, okay, so you don't know.
Akin to
So
what
you gotta make an argument
against other races. I
And
don't know.
here's what I'm warning you about AI. AI is like a powerful tool for research, but you really got to make sure that you're checking what it says is true. Like the other day,
I know the Google
hold
AI
up.
is
I'm not
really
finished.
iffy. I
I'm
know
not
that,
finished.
yeah.
No, like it makes shit up sometimes. Like stuff.
No,
that
I
it
know,
doesn't.
I know.
Hold
Yeah,
up.
I
Hold
know.
up. Hold up. This is something I did the other day. I was looking for like stuff that Trump did for black people, and I was like, can you give me a list of things that like Trump did for the black community in his personal capacity before he was president? Okay, so it said blah blah blah. I helped Jesse Jackson, which is true. I did this, which is true. I did this. Donated office space to the Rosa Parks Foundation. As far as I know, the Rosa Parks Foundation doesn't exist. Like it's not a thing, and Trump never gave them office space. So like it totally just fabricated that and created a fake source for it. And when you click the source, like it doesn't come up, and then you look it up and you can't find anything on it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so we can move on from the AI thing. What do you have to say about? Because I don't think we're ever going to come to an agreement unless we go into like a lot of very detailed facts about the specifics on the occupation. But what would you say about basically every credible human rights organization that does say there's discrimination and apartheid in Israel?
Yeah, I'm just going to disagree with those humanitarian organizations. I'm going to disagree with their arguments. I think they're the arguments that pretty much everybody uses to make these claims, and I don't agree with them. Israel treats, so first of all, if it's going to be a system of racial domination, that racial domination is going to apply to everybody, not just Palestinians, because Arab Israelis are also Arab, just like Palestinians. That system is going to apply to them as well, and it doesn't. They are equal citizens. It seems like the factor that causes Israel to treat Palestinians differently than Israelis is the fact that they are not citizens of Israel, and even in that case, they're not treated much differently, right? People who live in Israeli territories that are Palestinian are treated pretty similar to Israeli citizens. They just can't vote in elections or buy property because they don't have citizenship. But they are offered citizenship, and they get permanent resident status, which means that they can have a job and continue to live in East Jerusalem or wherever it is that they are, right? So they get to do everything except the stuff that they like government related stuff, So I think that they're not even treated like super aversely. Now, when it comes to like Palestinian,
can I say something real quick?
Real quick, let me finish explaining. When it comes to like Israel's treatment of the border situation in the West Bank, they have more strict security than most countries probably have on their border. But I think that's totally reasonable considering the amount of times that the PLO has attempted to attack them and overthrow them. And I think that there are lots of Palestinian terrorist organizations in the West Bank that are not the PLO, and are not even Hamas sometimes. So I think that's perfectly justified that they would have really tight security on their border to West Bank territories.
So one of the, I think so far the biggest underlying issue here, the difference in our disagreement has been whether there's occupation or not. And I just pulled up the United States government website. The title is Israel and the Occupied Territories. Israel and the Occupied Territories, and it just goes, it's an executive summary. So I can go ahead and read this, but it seems to me, just from basic research, that the majority, it's overwhelmingly agreed upon by historians, by international relations experts.
Who are they occupying?
What was that?
Who are they occupying?
The Palestinians.
The Palestinians have never had a state. How can you can't occupy something?
That's exactly why they're occupied.
You can't no. You can't occupy something that doesn't exist. So like if
something, but they do exist though. What do you mean?
No. A Palestinian state never existed. So if a Palestinian state never existed, you can't occupy the Palestinian state. Who controlled that land before Israel had it?
Okay.
Who controlled the land before?
The British and the Ottoman Empire and blah, blah, blah.
No. We're talking about the West Bank. Who had the territory before Israel had it?
Jordan, before 1967?
Jordan had the territory. There was never a Palestinian state there. And Jordan agreed to the ceasefire with Israel, with the armistice lines where they were. Okay? So they're not occupying anything. You can't occupy a state that didn't exist. I think a lot of people fail to understand the difference between private ownership and state ownership, right? So like when a state says, I own all this land here, they're not saying that individual citizens don't own land within that land, right? They're just saying we have the authority to make laws for this land. That's what they're saying. We are the governing institution for this land, but many different people within this land can own property over the land that we have private institutions on, and not every inch of that soil is owned by an individual person. So the West Bank is never at any time occupied every square inch by a human being, right? There are parts of the West Bank that are not occupied by anybody, where nobody lives, right? Every square inch isn't occupied by a human being, a private person, right? So a state would own the excess land, the land that nobody else owns, okay? So a Palestinian state never had sovereign control over that territory. Okay, there has to be somebody that has a state there, and you can't say that the Israeli government stole it from the Palestinian state if the Palestinian state never existed. That's what occupation means. You wouldn't say that the U.S. government is occupying the American people, right? That's not what occupation is.
Then why does the U.S. government say they're occupying Palestine?
So basically, hold up. Yeah, I just fundamentally disagree with whatever paper you're reading. So first of all, like, for example, just because Israel owns Area C of the West Bank, right, that doesn't mean that people who say, Arab people who are formerly Palestinian Arabs can't own property, right, or live in that territory. They can, if they become Israeli citizens. And de facto, the day that Israel was founded, I'm not finished.
Can any of them
I'm not finished. De facto, the day that Israel was founded, all Arabs who remained within its borders became Israeli citizens, which is why
except for the ones that were expelled, right?
No, well, how many do you think were expelled? That's a great.
750,000 is the number?
750,000 were not expelled. The minority were expelled. The majority of them left because there was a major breakdown of Arab society within the borders. Because when the war started, when it was literally started by the Palestinians, when the Palestinian Arabs started war. I'm not finished, so you're just going to let me have to finish here. So when the Palestinian Arabs started the war, okay, the majority of the wealthy political leaders from the towns where Arabs lived left. They abandoned the region. Okay, they left for other Arab countries, which forced other Arabs to leave because they had no leadership. Okay, so there's like a total breakdown of Arab society, and that's a huge contributor to why Arabs are disproportionately poor today in Israel.
That's not what the historians say, but okay.
Actually, it is. I can name you 3 historians who agree with me right now. Benny Morris, Daniel
What do the
Hortis.
majority of historians think about the Palestinian expulsion in 1948, right?
The majority of historians agree that they fled due to the flail of war and breakdown of Arab culture and society in Israel. Because Arabs left. There was also a small minority of them who left due to direct orders from Arab leadership, but that's the small minority. And then a very small minority also were expelled. But the reason that those people were expelled is because the towns on the border of Israel and what would later become West Bank Jordan, right, were being used as military bases for Arab dissidents, and the Israeli government not only needed to wipe those people out and prevent them from continuing to attack Israel and use those towns as forward operating bases, but also prevent those people from giving the towns to the Transjordanian Arab Legion when they would eventually invade later in the second phase of the war. So of course they had to deal with those people, but it was always a minimum. They only ever moved people out when they were met with extreme resistance from military dissidents. That's the only time they did it. You can read Plan Dalit. The entire plan is that they would march into these towns, capture the towns, and if they were met by resistance or resistance militants made themselves known, then they would move them out.
Yeah, I think that we're going to need to go on really deep into the nuances there to really figure out if we agree on the definitions of expulsion or displacement or whatever.
What historian do you think agrees with you?
I mean, I don't know, man. Norman Finkelstein, the super biased guy,
the pseudo historian, the moron.
Well, look, who was the guy he was with on the podcast, man?
Benny Morris, who agrees with me. Benny Morris was on that podcast.
Benny Morris obviously is going to agree with you, obviously. So, and I think
why? Benny Morris is pretty impartial. Benny Morris like admits to a lot of things that are very damaging to Israel. But I think it's okay to acknowledge things that are damaging to Israel or that make Israel look bad, because in the cases that Israel has done damaging things or things that are bad, right?
Okay.
Like, for example, the massacre before the Suez invasion, right? That they killed a bunch of Arab villagers. Like, I think that every time Israel's done these things, they have acknowledged them, convicted the people responsible, and then taught about these things in school and amended the law so that future massacres don't happen. So, yeah.
Well, I would say let's quickly touch back on the occupation issue, because you're still arguing that there is no form of occupation, and I would make the argument that there is. So on the State Department website, just type in.
I really could.
Israel.
Okay, so this is on this
U.S.
platform.
State Department.
Yeah, on
website
this platform, we make our own arguments. We don't say, oh, well, just because the U.S. State Department agrees with me, like just because the U.S. State Department is saying it, that must make it true. That's not what we do on this platform.
Well,
we make our own
saying,
arguments and we come to our own conclusions. We don't say just because the U.S. agrees with me, that means I'm right. No, I don't agree with the U.S. on a lot of things. Like
So let me respond to that by saying, I think it is quite damning, and I think it's significant if everybody internationally, if the majority of individuals and if international relations experts and if geopolitical experts think that there is an occupation, then I think that's significant. I think that matters a lot.
Yeah. So
what you think if there's occupation or not.
In the mid 1800s, the majority of the international community thought that it was okay to like discriminate against Jewish people, prevent them from practicing law and medicine in Europe. They thought it was okay to like allow pogroms and segregate them to places like Odessa. Real quick. Okay, cool. So the majority of the international community thought that it was cool and okay. Does that mean that it was actually cool and okay, or do we think that they were wrong? Okay, cool. At one point, the majority of the international community believed the fucking Earth was flat. Does that mean that they were right? Obviously, it doesn't mean that they were right. Like, we can't just appeal to international consensus and say, like, oh, well, because these people with authority say that this is so, that means that it must be so. There's also a point where the majority of the international community thought that slavery was cool and that you could do slavery and that was just fine. Obviously, we wouldn't say just because they believed slavery was cool that it was cool.
Let's go a little more specific.
Perfect.
Because when it comes to, let's say, Area C, we discussed earlier, if there's troops and if there's checkpoints, how can that not constitute some form of occupation?
Because it's not Palestinian land, it's Israeli land. It never was Palestinian land.
There we go. So they're non-Israeli citizens there. There are Palestinians there that are oppressed under occupation, but because it's actually by law on paper Israeli land, automatically it's not a occupation.
It was never Palestinian land. I don't know what you want. There are few people who claim Palestinian citizenship in Area C. There are also few people in Israel proper, not in the West Bank, who claim to be Palestinian citizens. What does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. Just because there are people in the United States who are not American citizens, that doesn't mean that it's not our land, because there are people here who are not citizens of this country. It's still our land. Like, I don't know what you want from me. What do you mean? They still have a right to do whatever they want with their land. It was never Palestinian land. There was never a Palestinian state there. In fact, the only time that Palestine, as a governing entity, the Palestinian Authority, has ever had territory ever in history was when Israel gave it to them in 1994 via the Oslo Accords. That's the only time they ever had territory. Ever.
Okay.
Ever in history.
Okay. So let's see.
And those Oslo established A, B, and C.
I feel like you essentially have your own highly subjective opinion.
It's not highly subjective. It's all based on facts. It's not highly subjective.
So
it's all
Article
based on
42
facts.
of the definition of occupation. Let's see here, right? The Hague Relations, whatever, internationally.
Yeah, I could give a shit about international law. Do you also concede
that?
Wait, hold up. If you care about UN resolutions that are highly biased and made by politicians, then you should also agree the fact that Israel has a right to be there. Because the UN are the ones who gave them the right to be there. You should agree with...
exactly, yeah. So
it contradicts itself, right? So, of course, I don't give a fuck about international
what contradicts itself? What contradicts itself?
Hold up. The idea that because of international law, Israel is occupying Palestine and the partition plan, which gave Israel the right to be there. Okay, so first, and not only that, also... I'm just going to reject international law fundamentally. I don't agree with the idea of a Council of Nations making laws for every other country.
So then we disagree fundamentally on what occupation even is.
No, I'm willing to use the definition.
I'm making the argument
I'm using.
I'm
no, shh.
Okay, all right.
I'm willing to
Let me
use.
just say this one thing.
I'm willing to use the definition, and I have to go here in a second. I'm willing to use the definition from the UN, but I'm not willing to say like the UN should enforce this, nor is it enforceable. International law is never enforceable, and a law is only as valid as its enforceability. So yeah.
Okay, so I just want to say one last thing. I'm making the argument that international law has a definition of occupation. The international community, historians, scholars, whatever, all of us have an idea of what occupation is. And it seems that overwhelmingly the situation constitutes occupation. But you're saying that no, it's not, because I just don't think it is.
That's not what I'm saying. Why do you think it's? What metrics do you take to decide that this is occupied territory? You can't tell me who lived there before, or you acknowledge that it wasn't a Palestinian state. So what makes you think that it's occupied? Who are they occupying it from? They're not occupying it from Palestinians because Palestinians are still allowed to live there. They're not occupying it from Jordan because Jordan agreed to the peace deal.
Exactly.
So what the hell are you talking about? They want it in a.
That's what occupied means, right?
They took what? Sorry, what?
That's what occupied means. Palestinians live there. They're occupied. That's what it means.
Are Mexican nationals in America occupied if they live here, if they're here on a visa?
They're immigrants in the United States. That's not the same thing.
Cool.
Palestinians in their own territories aren't living in Israel.
It's not their territories. There is no Palestinian territories in Area C. It's Israeli territories.
Well, places where Palestinians overwhelmingly live. So if they're not their territories, then they're occupied native Palestinians.
There was no Palestinian state there. Palestinian is a nationality. Not an ethnicity. You know what that means.
And then, but there's walls around them, and they're separated into many different areas.
Yes, on Israeli territory, there are walls on their border. Yeah, you can have walls on your border. There's nothing wrong with that. We have walls on our border, and you should when you're surrounded by terrorists.
Wait. They're a nationality. They're not a territory. Yes. But we have walls of the border. How does that make any sense?
Wait, they are a territory. I never said. When did I say they don't have territory? They have areas A and B. That's the entire premise of this argument.
So that's Palestinian territory. That's Palestinian territory.
Yeah, areas A and B. I said this 2 hours ago.
Okay.
Areas A and B are
territories.
Yeah.
Those are Palestinian territories.
Yes.
Okay. And then there's walls around them, and there's checkpoints outside of them.
Yes.
But they're not occupied.
No, occupation is being present in land that doesn't belong to you, enforcing laws on those people.
So Palestinians have their own territory, but they're not a state, though. They're not a state.
I mean, they're the
Why
closest.
Aren't they a state? Why aren't they a state?
Yeah. So if you let me finish, they're the closest to having been a state they've ever been, but they're not like totally independent yet. The Oslo Accords, which is what gave them areas A, B, and C, areas A and B as territory, okay, was a 5-year plan with the hope on both sides of establishing an official and legitimate Palestinian state. Okay, that agreement never went through. It never advanced because the Palestinians breached it. They went to further negotiate the allocation of land and the expansion of the Palestinian territories into the creation of a Palestinian state, where Israel offered them 70% of the West Bank, which would expand the territories that they have and reduce the territories that Israel has, and all 100% of the Gaza Strip. Okay? Hold up, my phone had a verification thing. And 100% of the Gaza Strip. Okay? Yasser Arafat, the negotiating party, rejected that deal from Ehud Barak, went home, bombed Israel, and then planned and launched the second intifada via Hamas. That, they breached the agreement, they stopped the peace, and the agreement hasn't moved forward since then. That was in 2000, okay? And another reason why they aren't a, official state is because you have two, warring sides that are essentially in their own civil war, right? Gaza and the West Bank both claiming to be the real Palestinian state, while neither of them have total sovereignty. So, yeah.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, I found another thing where essentially since 1967, the United Nations has considered the area occupied.
Yeah, I don't care.
I think they have a blockade around Gaza with walls and checkpoints and soldiers around Gaza. I would consider that occupied.
Do you think that? Right? Do you think that Israel or America is occupying Mexico because we have a wall and soldiers on our border?
No, but because we don't control everything that goes in and out of Mexico.
Right, we control everything that goes in and out of Mexico from our border.
Do we have a surveillance
Hold up, not finished. Do we do intelligence in Mexico and South America? Fuck yeah, we do. Also, not finished. No, because Mexico isn't a terrorist state dedicated to our annihilation. Gaza is. Okay, nextly, America absolutely has a wall on its border, and it has soldiers guarding that border, National Guard and Border Patrol, ICE, on its border, and we do control everything that goes into Mexico through our border. Absolutely we do. But Mexico has another border. They have a southern border that they can also get things through if the U.S. ever decided that they were a threat and we needed to limit the amount of things that we let in to Mexico through our border. Gaza also has this. They also have a southern border. But Egypt isn't much more tolerant of them than we are, because they know that Hamas would likely attempt to take over Egypt if they were given the chance.
Yeah. Well, you can understand, though, obviously, that there are differences, right? You know, it's not totally analogous to our situation with Mexico.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. Well, you're right. It's not exactly analogous because, again, Mexico. Hold up. No, I would argue it's not very different in terms of principle. It's the exact same. But the
That's
only
why Gaza's destroyed.
The only well, we're not in a war with Mexico, like dumbass. I don't know.
That's why there's no food in Gaza.
Yeah, there is food in Gaza. There's 3,000 calories per day per person. What are you talking about? There's no food in Gaza. There's more food per person than I eat in a day. I don't eat 3,000 calories per day. The average person eats 1,600. And I'm not finished. Hold up. The only way that this would be like even more analogous to the U.S.-Mexico border is if Israel, if Mexico was a state with the sole stated purpose of annihilating America, but they're not. They're not a state with the stated goal of annihilating America and all Americans worldwide. Hamas is. Fatih Hamad, one of the senior officials of Hamas, literally said that all the Palestinians diaspora, all 7 million of them, need to go around the planet and deal with the Jews by way of slaughter and killing. Right on top of the passage, the Hadith that's listed in their charter.
You can find examples of people saying genocidal sentiment on both sides, right?
Yeah, I would love to see it. But anyway, that's not their stated goal. Their stated goal from 1988, Hamas, is to annihilate the Jewish people and annihilate the Jewish state. Now their stated goal is to annihilate the Jewish state. So yeah, of course they're going to treat them much differently than we treat Mexico.
Yeah. Well, to me, I think we're going to fundamentally seems like we're going to subjectively disagree here on the definition and the subjective reality of occupation. I think it's abundantly clear that there is an occupation because we already went over the points a million times. I'm not going to reiterate the points. Well, if I can't argue that there's occupation, if we can't agree that there's a form of occupation, then it's going to be very difficult to have an agreement on whether there's any kind of discrimination, because apparently Israel doesn't actually do anything in West Bank or Gaza, right?
They don't do anything in Areas A. So they don't do anything in Areas A. They have joint security control over Areas B, and they have full control over Areas C.
Yeah. Well, apparently they don't have enough power over Gaza or the entirety of West Bank for you to constitute occupation or to constitute...
Because they gave it away. They did have control over these areas. What do you mean? They had control over the entire West Bank from 1967 to 1994, and they still didn't do this to people. Like, what the hell are you talking about? They also had control of Gaza from 1967 to 2005.
What do you mean? Who had control of Gaza?
Israel had control over Gaza from 1967 to 2005. And
so would you say it was occupied in that era?
Yeah, in the same way that Gaza? Yeah, I would say that Gaza was occupied. I wouldn't say that the West Bank was. Because actually, I don't know. It depends because again, like Israel won this in a defensive war. I would say like Sinai was
defensive war.
Yeah, defensive war. What, you don't think 67 was defensive war? You want to talk
about that? I think that's a very controversial historical thing. I don't know. I haven't looked into the 67 6-day war. I haven't looked into that too much.
Yeah, sure. Well, anyway, all right. Well, it's super hot in my office, so I gotta take a break from streaming and air this shit out, or I'm gonna sweat my balls off. So, anyway. I appreciate you coming up, man. It's a good conversation. You're welcome to come back anytime you want. I'll be live probably, in a little bit. I just need to get my office cooled down a little bit. I don't have any AC in here.
All right, then.
All right, cool. Appreciate it, bro. See ya.
Yep.
Bye. Spend a little time reading the chat, too, here. All right. I got to read more propaganda points because you're losing it. How am I losing it? What do you mean I'm losing it? He's losing. Am I losing? Keep running? How am I running? I just argued with that guy for an hour. Oh, I gotta kill my YouTube stream too. Oh wait, what happened to my... Something happened to my